Okay, so
Cool.
welcome everybody to this Toronto Perl Mongers online meeting. We have three speakers today who are all going to talk about different aspects of the Open SUSE project. We have Michael Schroeder, who's going to start first, and then Tina Mueller, and I think Oliver is also perhaps going to join. I'd ask everyone to mute um, if their microphones, if they're not the speaker. And there was a link to the Etherpad, and also you can put comments or questions into the chat. The chat is enabled. So, unless there's any other issues, please take it away, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. So, what we kind of planned is to do a little QA after each section, if that's okay with you. And yeah, so I'm gonna first talk a bit about the Open Build Services, which is basically the tool SUSE uses to build all their products, almost all the products, how it came into existence, why half of it is written in Perl, and yeah, and if you're happy with Perl, and if you're not, so going to talk about that as well. So about myself, so I kind of am currently one of the two project managers of the Open Build Service, and I'm also kind of the architect of the build side of the system. That is everything that really does the building process, and where the sources are stored and the build artifacts are stored. This is all kind of under my hood, and I'm kind of the person to go to if something goes wrong. And there's then also the user interface side and the API side, which is managed by a different team. And I'm also the maintainer of the Perl packages at SUSE. Yeah, so in the motivation about what is this build service thing about? So say you created some super cool new software, and then people come to you and say, yeah, it's all source, but can't you provide us with binary packages? And I have a Debian package and a system, and I need Debian packages, and somebody else comes from the Fedora side and wants a Fedora package, or OpenSUSE, of course, and Arch Linux, and yada, yada, yada. So then you say, okay, it isn't that much work. And then people come to you, okay, we have x86-64 package, but I've got my Raspberry Pi and I want to run your software on my Raspberry Pi. So you've got a bunch of architectures as well, and this gets very tedious. And people then come to you, you have to, you do a new version with super new features, and then people come to you, hey, please, where are the binary package of the new version? So this is actually why you need the Open Build Service. The Open Build Service, it's super easy. With the Open Build Service, you just create a new project for you, where this is basically the workspace. And then you configure in the project, you want to build your package to be built for this and this and this target distribution. And you basically also say this and this and this architecture. And then you just create a package, a package basically is the entity that holds the different source files, and upload your source files to the package. And there is no other step. There's no step forth. The build service starts building, and you can kind of watch online how the packages are built, and the binary packages then get published. It automatically creates the repository metadata, and you can tell your friends, you kind of just point them to give them the URL where the repositories are, and they can install your packages on their system. So it's super easy to get binary packages for very, very many architectures and distributions. So that's now this is the motivation. Now kind of start bragging about the build service. So kind of make your mouth water with all the features it has. So first of all, of course, it's open source. SUSE in its heart is an open source company. Everything we do is open source. So what you can do is just can go over to GitHub. You have the complete source of the build service there. You can kind of create a branch, and you can fork it and modify it and submit your changes, and we look into it and merge your changes if you want to improve things. It's licensed under GPL v2, and there are lots of contributors. So of course, SUSE is contributing very much, but we have over 400 contributors from many, many countries and different companies. And you can see there's a graph taken from openhub.net, and yeah, it's kind of, you have a steady a steady amount of contributions. So it's not kind of, so there's no decline or so. So there's lots of things to do. And of course, with software like this, there's new stuff comes up and somebody invents a new package system and we need to add support for it. So at some point in time, containers were the thing, so we added support for building containers. So there's always much to do. So if you need something, don't be shy, reach out to us, say you want this feature in the build service, can you make it possible? And usually if it's not too much work, we can help. Of course, this is kind of an open source thing, so it's so if it's too much work, we will say sorry, we can't do it. So then you have to do it yourself. Another very cool feature of the build service is that it's pretty unique. So I don't know any other build system that does that. It supports automatic rebuilds. So of course, if you update the source, it will automatically do a rebuild. But also if a package that was used for the building before is changed, then it also does a rebuild. I mean, you can turn it off, of course, but it's super important if your target is some rolling release system like, I don't know, Fedora Ride or Tumbleweed, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, where packages get released every week, and then you need to rebuild your packages as well with the new software. So you need to kind of stay with the new versions, or maybe your package isn't installable. So this is kind of something that's turned out really useful. Also for if you're a software developer, you want to know as early as possible if your software doesn't build anymore, right? So if upstream, say Fedora or Hide does some changes, then when you need to adapt, you then with that automatic rebuilding, you get automatically notified that your package isn't building anymore and you need to do something. So this is kind of cool. And of course, because SUSE is a distribution builder, it has special support for cyclic dependencies. Cyclic dependencies, usually you don't see them very often, but you see them, of course, if you do have something like a compiler that is built with itself or so, or the language stacks usually kind of have a big cycle there where packages where they use their own packages for building. So this, of course, if you then a naive approach would then just go into a rebuild cycle and rebuild everything, but we are kind of clever there, so that doesn't happen here. Yeah. Our building, of course, we have the build service, open build service. There's a public instance. You can upload the source into it, but that means a malicious somebody with bad intentions, we must be sure that nobody can take over our system, right? So what we do is we do deterministic and secure builds. Deterministic means that the dependency resolver is something we have written. We don't use a stock dependency solver like with DNF or Zipper or so, but we have our own dependency solver because we do not want the solver kind of throw a dice to resolve some dependency. So if there's ambiguity, we want an error, dependency resolving error to be reported, and then you have to resolve that by configuration. That is, you need to say, I prefer this package. So we don't want a package suddenly to get built with different libraries or so, just because there's a new library that provides the same thing. And also, we do all the builds in a virtual machine with no network access. This is something that with the software supply chain attacks a couple of years ago, people said you're crazy to do that. That makes no sense. We download in building, we download things all the time. But with the software supply chain security being high in the press and really deep stuff like the SALSA standard really also from the security guys really demand that nowadays that you don't download stuff that's untracked while building a package. So that's where we did from kind of the beginning. So we only build virtual machines. Of course, you can kind of download at check-in time. You can you do the download yourself, but also there's something called a source service where they can ask the build service to do the download for you. But at the build time, the sources are the input is kind of fixed. So you don't get surprises there. And I kind of hinted at that also. It's super versatile. So we support RPM, Debian, Arch Linux, Alpine was added a year ago or so, and we support multiple recipe formats. A recipe is something like a spec file or a manifest file, basically says which packages are needed to build this specific software. And there's, of course, every language has its own way to specify dependencies. So we need lots of dependency recipes, sorry. So we need lots of recipe parsers. And yeah, and oh, there's an N missing. It's supposed to be Debian, sorry. And we have lots of base distributions that we support, SUSE, Fedora, Debian, Ubuntu. And it's super easy to add a new distribution. So if something is missing, just give us open an issue. The best thing is probably to open an issue on GitHub, and we'll look into it. Yeah, and architectures and output formats. Yeah, so we are versatile. And we are almost on the last feature page, so kind of enough bragging about the build service. We can kind of go to some different topics, but some feature that I also want to mention is there's some collaboration. There's collaboration features built into it. So what you can do easily on the build service, you can branch a package. A branch is basically create a copy. And the cool thing with the branches is that it kind of automatically merges the changes. So say you want to build a specific version of some piece of software which your own patch applied. So you can branch the package, you can add the patch to the recipe, and then if the place where you branched from updates the package version, it will also automatically add that patch for you. So it's like it implicitly does a Git merge, if you can know about Git. So this is pretty cool also. And of course, you can also submit the changes you did back via so-called merge request, and there's the user interface can then tell you for your projects which requests are there. It's basically a bit like GitHub or GitLab or so. You know this source management systems. You don't need to use that. And some years ago, there was code added where you can also track other systems like GitHub. So you can also have to put your software on GitHub or GitLab or so, and then just tell the build service to take the sources from there. Yeah, it's scalable. So our instance, just to give you some number, it has for the source server, it currently uses 51 terabytes of data, and the repository servers, this is where the build artifacts are held. This is basically the binary package, is 161 terabytes, and we have 94 worker hosts. In each host there's about 10 worker instances because we have a couple of CPUs in the worker. And yeah, so you see we are pretty our instance is really quite big, but it also needs to be so big because as it's such a cool system, there are many people using it, and you SUSE some kind of must keep up with the demand. So of course, it's something we just have to do basically. If you run a public system and the public is successful, that's the downside of being successful. You must kind of keep it running and keep people content. This is the architecture. What you basically you can access this via the web browser. I mean, so this is I'm just to interrupt a bit. So this is just slides, and then Tina will later on kind of show you how to work with the system and give you. So I have just slides, and I'm just doing talking, and then Tina will show you some live action. So you come there with the browser or the command line. There's a command line tool. This is called OSC, the OBS. What's that? I don't know. I don't know what this is. Something client. And with the browser or the command line client, you go to the web user interface, and then if you want to change sources, you go to the source server. And the source server, if you then may go to the repository server if you want to access a build log or start a build. And on the repository server, we have multiple scheduler runnings for each architecture, and then there's a dispatcher that pushes the jobs, the created jobs from the repository server to the worker where it gets a build, and then you have the build space, that's kind of a disk space where the build is done, and then it's sent back to the repository server, and then you can kind of get it from the repository server. So I'm kind of just showing you this so you can see the languages. So the command line client is written in Python. The API and the web user interface is Ruby on Rails, and the rest of the system is kind of Perl. And you may wonder, why on earth did they do that? And it's kind of because the groups that implemented it, this was what they had the most experience with, right? So Ruby on Rails at the time, the build service, we wrote the build service in 2005. That was just the thing that came out. That's the thing to do. And so that is why the API and the web user interface is written in Ruby on Rails. The command line client was done by one person, Peter Permel, who was very good at Python. And why I used Perl for the backend side, I come to that right now. Yeah, why Perl? Yeah, actually I'm to blame. So it's a bit of background from my side. So I studied computer science at the University of Erlangen, and there I worked at Univis. I programmed Univis with a couple of other people. That was an information system for universities, and it was written in Perl. This is basically the first big Perl project I did. And it was programmed in 1996, and it went into production in 1997, and it then 15 at the top 15 or 10 to 15 universities used it to manage their lectures, so it was kind of successful. And then in 2000, SUSE came to me and asked me to improve the auto-build system. The auto-build system was at that time a bunch of bash scripts which was basically used to do the building. This was very, very rudimentary what the build service currently does. So it kind of didn't have a scheduler at this, so it didn't do the automatic dependency resolving. It was just a bunch of shell scripts. And the first thing I did, coming from a Perl, you having experience with Perl, I re-implemented most of it in Perl. And so I added new stuff like this dependency expansion code I talked about in pure Perl. This was all Perl. Yeah. And then came 2005. And a year ago, or I think it was end of 2003, Red Hat merged the Fedora US project and created kind of the Fedora project. And our upper management said, kind of went into panic then. And it said, SUSE needs something similar. So we must kind of, Red Hat does something cool or something that changes the way people look at software. So we must kind of have something similar and keep up with them. So the idea of the management was to move the development of the SUSE distribution into the open. And so they kind of asked us to create something like the build service. And so there was a group, we created a group, the open source group, and then we sat together and discussed how things could look like. And our idea was basically, that to take the auto-build system and kind of make it auto-build on steroids, make it really, really good and make it versatile, make it easy to use, kind of get rid of all the problems we had with the old systems. But we had to do it at a very short amount of time. So basically, what I did for the back end, I kind of took the old auto-build code, the Perl code, and kind of salvaged as much as possible because we just hadn't the time to go to a different language. That's basically why the complete backend is written in Perl and also some bash is still in there. So, and we kind of, it was a really, really, really hard time. So we kind of did it in a record time frame and presented it then at FOSDEM in 2006. And our first presentations also all already included how to build RPMs and Debian packages. So that was something we did right from the beginning. Right from the beginning, it was not all the other build systems were tailored for their own distribution. So the Fedora build systems just was able to build Fedora packages and the other distributions as well. And we had the only build system which could target both the RPM and the Debian side right from the beginning. So this is basically where we were different and where we showed that we really want to be open. So it's not SUSE-centric, but we want to kind of give the open source community something. Yeah. Strengths of Perl. So am I happy with Perl? Yes. I'm really, really happy with Perl, having stayed with Perl for the system, because Perl is reasonable fast and is not memory hungry. If I would have used Python or so, it would be way more slower, and I don't think it would have been possible memory-wise. But I mean, the scheduler processes now with Perl and all this stuff is still, it kind of, it uses a couple of gigabytes and on memory space. I don't think another language would work, especially not Ruby. Ruby would be totally hopeless with the garbage collection at that time. Yeah, and Perl Perl turned out to be just the thing that would work for us with the way it handles, does the reference counting in the objects, and it's kind of so optimized internally that we're really, really happy there. And the other thing, of course, you can guess the second point. We had never surprises with Perl that we did a version update and then suddenly everything would break. So this absolutely did never happen. There were, of course, stuff with some deprecations, and at some point in time you needed to have a backslash before the ampersand in the regular expression and stuff like that. But no surprises. So this is really, really good from the Perl community. And also, if I look at other languages where they put out a mate, I mean, it's getting better with with languages like Python or so. But yeah, I think Perl is really, this is really where Perl shines. And also, it was very easy to kind of rewrite the critical parts. So we kind of, what we do, and we still do, is there's the load changes, and we have to look into it. What's the new bottleneck there? And then we kind of we kind of need to figure out how to remove the bottleneck. And for big stuff, what we just did is we rewrote the really hot parts into C. So there's an XS model, Perl BSolve, which is kind of used with this scheduler, and it contains all the hot parts. Yeah, of course, we also have some weaknesses. Yeah, you probably also know that the development, I mean, you are with some stuff, you're basically, I don't know, 10 years late with some stuff. So Perl upstream has picked so much speed again. I'm so happy that it picked up so much speed with all the new things going, with the classes being in core Perl now, and with signature changes, and you can iterate over multiple values and stuff like that. I wish I would have that stuff 10 years ago or so. So it's kind of, I kind of think, I'm not sure, I do not know if that's true or not, but I kind of think Perl lost 10 years or so, which is kind of, for whatever reasons, I don't know, maybe people start focused there on Raku or whatever, I don't know. We don't need to go into reasons there, but yeah. But of course, the downside is kind of that many people nowadays don't see the new features of Perl and kind of say it's just the old stuff, and this is no longer the cool language. Yeah, so it's hard to get new people when you tell them they have to work on a big chunk of Perl code. Yeah, but as I said, I'm super happy with Perl. I mean, I'm the maintainer of the package, so I have to be happy. Yeah, it's okay. And here's the links for you. So there's a openbuildservice.org site where you can go to. We have quite information and tutorials and stuff about the build service. And of course, there's the SUSE's open build service instance at build.opensuse.org. Okay, then so much for my little introduction about the build service. Any questions? Thanks, Tina. But that's not a question.
Yeah, by the way, I also like booleans now that Perl has
Oh,
real
yeah.
booleans. As an implementer of a YAML module, that comes in quite handy.
Yeah, and also that it kind of remembers so if you have an integer and then you stringify that, it still remembers that it's an integer. That also comes in handy for that.
I
Yeah.
would say if people have questions, they could type them in the chat, or they could also use the little raise hand feature. I do have a question, and this will sort of show how little I know about this subject. But so at my work, we are using a program that is written in C++, and it's incredibly fast at building these phylogenetic evolutionary trees. And we were using it during the COVID pandemic for public health purposes. And we're usually running it on probably like Debian type machines, big HPC compute things that we have out at the Genomics Institute at UC Santa Cruz. And but at one point, say a few years ago, the issue became, well, okay, but can I get this program to run on my MacBook? And the answer was no. We need someone to like do whatever magical thing it is that you have to do because of your MacBook has an M2 chip or an M3 chip or whatever. So would open build service be a possible solution for that, or am I missing something?
Oh, I don't have experience with MacBooks. I think what do they have? I think the package format, of course, will be different. So I think we would need to add support for that. So CPU wise, I think this wouldn't be that much of a problem, but I don't think we support the package format yet. Tina, do you know about that? I think this is some like E package or O package. I think this is something in that direction. Some coming from the BSD forks, but I'm not 100% sure.
Because under the hood, Mac OS Darwin or whatever is like a branch of BSD, I guess, originally, or something like that. Okay. Well, thank you. No, they did solve the problem, but I think it involved just someone putting in a lot of manpower and changing whatever they had to change manually. Or maybe nowadays you'd use, a chat bot and say, please make this work on a Mac. I don't know.
That would be interesting, yeah, actually, to have some non-Linux, because we currently pretty much just do Linux packaging. So this is something we could go into, but there
okay.
doesn't
Here we
seem
have a
that much of
question.
demand.
Here we have a question from Jim. Does Open Build support any BSD packaging?
Yeah. Does it? I don't think so. This is basically the same what I just said. So that it's currently, so the instance we run, we basically just kind of we run it on with Linux, a Linux kernel. So, but it wouldn't be that hard actually. So from an architecture wise, so it wouldn't be that much of a problem. So, I mean, the build scripts and the build stuff that then does the build, it's basically just Bash and Perl. This would be no problem, of course, to get it run on BSD or Mac OS. With the VM, I think I don't think this would be that much of a problem. But we have, as I said, unfortunately, so I wanted to do something that is a kind of hobbyist from time to time, but I haven't gone into that direction. But if you, okay, let's repeat that. If you think this is a cool thing to have, then if you want to work with us adding stuff like that, we would be, so if it's not that much work and this sounds like it would be kind of doable, then just reach out to us. So like with Alpine now, we have Alpine support. So this is something that just a couple of people asked us to add, and so we just did it. So this is not something that our management asked us to do. It was basically some other people asked us, and if you have time, and this is a cool thing to do. And I mean, you know how it is. So you with work you don't want to do the same the boring stuff. So you really love also to do some new things and kind of expand your horizon. And so adding stuff like support for some BSD system of be it FreeBSD, OpenBSD, or whatever, NetBSD. This is basically a cool thing to do to kind of lighten up the day.
Okay, Olaf asks, what's on the roadmap for OpenBuild? Any new features you can talk about?
Is there what's kind of important from management or so is software supply chain things that's currently. So we added support for creating SBOMs and stuff like that, because this is kind of requested by bigger companies. So if you want to do some government stuff, I don't know, so we also are requested to just have that. So it's kind of getting to be the standard. You must basically you must have your SBOMs, otherwise you can't exist anymore in the current time. So this is something which you need to work on. But that's basically, yeah, the security stuff is all in SBOMs, and software supply chain is kind of hot topic.
And Jim has a second question. I am a CPAN author, but also am current maintainer of some CPAN distros written by others. Is there any reason why I should consider using the OpenBuild service?
Okay. It kind of, so the thing that with the build service is, okay, there's two things actually. So one thing, of course, is if you want to kind of provide binary packages, this is for CPAN. That's basically, I don't know if you want that. Some distributions need to package want you to package their Perl modules in RPMs or Debian packages, binary package, to make it easier for their users to install. But as a CPAN author, you also could use the build service, of course, as your CI system, but there's CI system for the CPAN stuff that already exists, so you don't need to do the build service, except maybe you want to target some exotic architectures that you don't have. But I don't know. Other than that, so it's kind of about binary packages. If this is basically the thing where it shines. Tina?
Yeah, I just added the link. I wrote a blog post a while ago about how to test the Perl module in OBS. So maybe that could be useful.
I mean, with CPAN is so old and big and good. So you have the smoke testing, support for smoke testing, all that already in CPAN, of course.
Okay, now Gabor asks, do I understand correctly that there is a hosted service of this that is free of charge? Who uses it? Yep. Do you have some stats?
Who uses it? The world uses it. Now, pretty much very many people use it. Do we have some stats? This I kind of come unprepared about that.
And it is free of charge. That's the important answer here.
I mean, you can kind of. I had the numbers right. I had this. I mean, there's the terabytes number with 50 something terabytes. So this is the public instance. Where is it? Here. So it's 161 terabytes of kind of binary packages that you can see that it's really, really heavily used. But I don't have the kind of the access numbers. I mean, there are statistics, but I don't remember the URL anymore because they are done by the web UI user interface team.
Okay.
And yes, it's free. There's no real limitation, but if you kind of misbehave so in such a big way that you kind of disrupt the service, we will of course look into it and see and figure out who did something weird and then contact you. And so there are people that try to rebuild, I don't know, OpenSUSE with, for whatever reason, or so all of the packages. And if too many people do that, it just kind of kills the service. So please behave on that service.
Okay, so Georg had a comment. Does Georg work at OpenSUSE? No. And then Gabor asks, does SUSE make money off this project?
Yeah. Well, it's a reputation thing, so an image thing. So there's no direct money, unfortunately. So there were from time to time some management folks or product managers come up with the idea that, hey, couldn't we sell the build service to some big companies? And we actually already had an offer at some point in time, but there's not really that much demand for it. But there are other companies that offer support for the build service, like B1 Systems. So they kind of offer you, if you need consulting work or so you can go to them. And it's also on the build service page, which I linked into. You can kind of point you to them if you need kind of consulting to work with your build service instance, or you want to set up your build service system instance. So actually there are lots of companies that use the build service internally, really many. I don't think I'm allowed to really tell you names right now, but
okay.
But
we don't want you to reveal any proprietary information.
Yeah, but but anyway, what I'm kind of saying is that the service, of course, is kind of free. So it's open source project. So of course, people other companies kind of use it because it's open source, and they kind of. So if SUSE would have it as a product, and it can't be very expensive because it's available in its full glory for free. So it's kind of too hard to sell it as a product, but of course, so it's not we don't really make direct money off it. But of course, we can't. It's something where people see that SUSE does something for open source. People come in contact with SUSE because of the build service. And the other thing is, if you have a package, if you package it in the build service, it's super easy for you to also offer packages for the OpenSUSE. So the chances are very high that you offer an OpenSUSE as a package as well. So the OpenSUSE project, so the OpenSUSE distribution, it kind of helps them to have the build service, because then they just get many more packages for them.
Okay, I don't want to stifle the discussion, but maybe we can move on to Tina's talk now.
So first, I just wanted to go quickly over me and SUSE and Perl. Actually, so I'm writing Perl since 1998, and I'm engineer at SUSE since 2019. And so is this readable for you?
Yep, it's good.
Okay. So I drew this timeline. This is made on paper with a pencil. So I'm starting in the 90s when I was studying computer science, and then I got a student job, which involved Perl. So there I learned Perl, and my mentor there gave me the programming Perl book. And so I was very lucky, because this way I learned Perl programming the right way. So written by Larry Wall, Tom Christiansen, and Randall Schwartz. And yeah, for the younger people, so I had this as a book. on paper, so dead trees. There was no Google at the time, and the only other information sources were maybe mailing lists and Usenet. The Usenet is something between email and web forums. And so I was hanging out in DE, comp, lang, Perl, for example, and asking questions and also answering questions. And in 2000, I did an internship in the US for half a year. And I wanted to bring my computer with me, but you know, a desktop computer was too big, so I got my first laptop. They were pretty expensive, so I got a used one. And I actually, just back for a second, I wanted to quote the Usenet. So this is actually also where Larry Wall was hanging around. So this is from 1992. What is the sound of Perl? Is it not the sound of a wall that people have stopped banging their head against? So this is quite a famous quote from Larry Wall. Yeah, back to the laptop. So this is my first laptop. And maybe you can spot it already, something familiar. Does anyone see it?
There's a SUSE logo on the top left, but it's the old one looking to the left-hand side.
Yeah, I mean, it's from 2000. So, but yeah, I was lucky. I mean, my first laptop, and I got a working Linux on it. So, and maybe I don't have a close-up for this, but the sticker on the right is from Active State. Just a sticker. This is for Windows, but yeah. So that's a Windows Perl distribution. And then I think I visited at some point my first YAPC and my first Perl workshop. And then I started to write new modules for CPAN at some point. I don't remember when I wrote the first one. And so there's Perl.doc Perl new mod. And this is actually the one from Perl 5.6.2, so quite old. And it always had this section, write tests. You're encouraged to create self-tests for your module to ensure it's working as intended on myriad platforms Perl supports. If you upload your module to CPAN, a host of testers will build your module and send you the results. So hello, Andreas. Thank you for still doing that service. So for example, today we have the CPAN testers matrix. And because it's slow right now, it's coming up. So this is how it looks for the YAML PP module, and it's really huge. The latest version is 5.43, but there are also still tests for 5.8. So Perl and testing, yeah. So I wrote tests for my software very early, and this is a really good tradition of Perl, I think. And I haven't seen this anywhere else. So this was way before GitHub Actions and stuff. And now I'm working at SUSE at the QE department, quality engineering, and I'm working on a software which is for testing. So this is where it all comes together, I think. All right. And now I could go on with OpenQA or with Perl modules and OBS. I'm not sure what would be the most important one. Maybe just a quick look. Is this readable?
Could you zoom in by 20%? Looks good. Thank you.
Okay, so this is something I just built this week. So we had the SUSE Hack Week last week, and I took all our metadata for our Devil Languages Perl repository in OBS. So here you would be able to find all the Perl modules, except that we just move this to our Gitty server. So they are actually now maintained in a Gitty instance and not directly anymore in OBS. But you can still click on monitor and see all the Perl modules there. And they are maintained in src-opensuse.org. That's the Gitty instance. And there we have 3,190 Perl modules. And many of them have actually some overrides. So maybe someone forgot to add the license in the right way or forgot dependencies. And on this new page, you can see this. So maybe let's have a look at this one. So alien SDL has overrides. So there's some custom build line and something that needs to be done after the installation and some extra requirements, which cPan authors cannot add, because on cPan you only add Perl requirements, but not libraries like this. And it also has patches. And you can actually go directly to that patch and see what it is about. So it's actually about the sorting keys that was done to have reproducible builds. And so, yeah, for every Perl module that we have in Devel language Perl, you can look it up here and see if there are any patches, and maybe you want to fix them in cPan if possible, if you're the author, or make a pull request. And this is also updated half automatically. So every morning I check the new releases on cPan. And if there are new releases, then I will create pull requests for those modules here. And we can, a few people are looking over them and accepting them if they look right. So we are always up to date, almost. So yeah, so much about the Perl modules. So actually, yeah, Michael, you said I would show something live in OBS, but I'm actually not sure.
You already showed the live build results.
Yeah, and this is how the build log would look like. So if you want to know what's going on and why something fails, you will see which libraries this is actually installing in which version. So if you're looking for a bug, then you can see the full log and debug what's going wrong. Okay. And then we move to OpenQA. So OpenQA is a software to test, but it's not something like Playwright or Selenium, where you are in an operating system and you test something in there, but you test from outside. And maybe the best is to look at an actual test to see what I mean. And the index page of OpenQA is always the slowest, which is a little bit embarrassing, but it's fetching all the recent builds. So Tumbleweed and different architectures. Let's look at a Tumbleweed test. I have prepared one. So here you see one test run, and you can click on the images. And so this is the installation you would see if you would install Tumbleweed on your machine.
And it's really nice that we do that in December, because then we can see this awesome Xmas themed boot screen, which OpenQA handles with, those reference screenshots, which are more than 5 years old. And once in a year, we test if this still works, and it does work very stable.
Yeah. And we can also look at the video. Oh. This is, of course, a bit faster than the actual real time. And there you see the whole installation menu. So this is how we check that actually everything looks right, and we can click on stuff and it's actually quite long. So not only screenshots, but we also do a lot of tests that are not related to any screens, but we type some commands and stuff. And we also test, we also test ourselves. So this is OpenQA. And now I go to, so we have these different job groups, and now I go to the OpenQA job group. And here we test our own software. So if here we are installing OpenQA, and here you will see that it actually shows an OpenQA browser window inside of OpenQA. And maybe just have a short look at the test. So this is a very simple test module. And what you will probably miss as Perl hackers is that there is no package line, because actually it's very common that every package has a package statement. We don't have that here because the software is actually generating that on the fly from the module name, just the last name. So that was done some years ago, and it could theoretically lead to some duplicates if you have the same module name, but it works actually fine. And then you have the subroutine run, and that is actually when the test starts. This is just a utility function, so it calls other stuff. So maybe look at this one. So here we are in a terminal, and we say assert script run, so it will enter this command and actually ensure that the return code for this command is 0, and otherwise it will abort the test. So, and you can always ask questions. Or put it in the chat. So this is how,
of all of these,
yeah.
this whole, sorry, I'm probably missing the basics here, but I'm assuming this this build service, this whole web UI that we're seeing, that's all got Perl in the back end, has it? Or is Perl just being used to generate all these different builds?
I'm not sure. You're talking about the build service?
Yeah, we have seen the build service in before, and for the build service, mostly in the backend, there's Perl, and on top the web UI is built on Ruby on Rails. Here, this
I
is
apologize.
actually
I've just seen the URL. It's OpenQA, isn't it?
no worries. So this is OpenQA now. However, in OpenQA, you can see Perl much more near to the surface. So actually there, I think the question is actually very, very much applicable. So Tina, maybe you can mention, because I assume we have mostly really Perl loving people here that are near to technology. So can you say how does the architecture look like?
Yeah, so the thing is, I didn't really get the actual question, but yeah, regarding the architecture, when I joined the team, my team members gave me this this SVG file, and it's really overwhelming if you don't know anything about OpenQA. So if you learn more and more, then you also start to understand the actual graphics here. But
Yeah, don't worry. I don't expect you to explain all of that architecture, but thank you.
Yeah, so actually, this the software is actually divided into two packages. So we have OPS-autoinst. So that's the initial package. So automatic installation of operating systems. And this actually started in 2009. And this is the software for just running one single test. So there will be, this is on some machine, and wait, why is there no? I thought we had ISO video in there.
In the script repo.
Ah, right.
You complained about the not so nice Perl package structure. So finally, last year we changed it.
Yeah, so this was created with all the Perl modules in the root folder at some point, and it's a bit hard to change that. But so this is the actual core of the OPS-autoinst software. So this is taking some JSON file with the settings for the test, and then it starts a QEMU instance, and it takes commands from outside, like type a key or move the mouse or something like that. And it talks to QEMU to actually execute these things. And then we can create screenshots, we created video, and we create JSON files for every single test with the pass or failure. And I think also one of the first modules was this one. It's BMW QEMU PM, and it has nothing to do with cars. It was written by Bernhard Wiedemann, and I think these are his username or his initials. So he started that in 2009. And this is all in Perl except the image matchings part that is done with C++ and TinyCV and OpenCV, I think. And the other part is actually OpenQA, which is orchestrating OPS-autoinst. So the simple case is you have just one machine and you're running tests with OPS-autoinst, and you have OpenQA on the same machine if you want, and you can just run one test after another. But in our OpenQA OpenSUSE.org instance, we can see we actually have workers. So currently we have about 500 different workers that are connected to this web UI instance, and they're all waiting to be assigned some new test. And every worker can actually run an arbitrary number of tests depending on what we configured, depending on the size of the machine. So the OpenQA instance itself, it's just orchestrating that, and it's scheduling tests. So currently there are 57 scheduled jobs that are waiting for a free worker until OpenQA then picks it up and lets it run. Yeah, so much about the architecture. But what is really cool is that you can actually try this out yourself without having to have a terminal or anything. I don't know if you know code spaces. You can do this on GitHub for free, and it will create some container for you with the pre-configured. So it's a pre-configured container we have for this this set of tests. So this is our set of OpenQA tests. And unfortunately, it takes a while to set it up for the first time. But then you can actually just play with a fresh OpenQA instance in your browser. And of course, now we have some semi-intelligent agent here. Okay, so it started. Oh, so it's still installing. Maybe let this run a little bit in the background. Something else I wanted to mention is we also, we measure our code coverage in tests. And for OpenQA, we have 99.26% code coverage. And for OPS-autoinst, we have 100%. So I think that's quite awesome. We do have some exceptions. If you know the devil cover module, you know that you can actually mark some lines as uncoverable because it just, in some cases, it's really too much effort to try to cover a certain line. So we mark it as an exception. But I think it's still pretty cool. Okay. Port 80 is available. And here we have our new fresh OpenQA instance. Let's try to log in. And we are logged in as demo. We have ready to use API keys if you want. Of course, we don't have any job groups or any tests, but we have this create test thing. And for that, we first need to clone the example repository. In the background, so this is actually done, the web UI is done with Modulicious. And for background tasks, we are using Minion. And we can look up here in the Minion that there was this git clone task which has been executed. So now I can actually create a test. And let's see if we actually have running tests. Yes, we do. And this is how a running test looks like. We can follow the video. And it's a very simple test, of course. So it says no bootable device because we didn't give it anything. But that's what we actually check for. And that's why it's green, because we expect that. So this is the most simple test we can run. And this is how it looks like. Assert screen. So we check for that certain screenshot. And if something changes, for example, we can edit the needle. Of course, it mostly makes sense if the test actually fails and doesn't match, but can actually add some new areas to, we call these screenshots needles. And then the test will ensure that this part of the screenshot must also match. So this is pretty cool and yeah, easy to use. So it will generate some JSON for that. And yeah, let me just check. Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I prepared. So are there any other questions? Or Oliver, do you want to
Yeah.
add
Who
some?
uses OpenQA? I know that also Fedora uses it, right? Are there any other distributions using it already?
Yeah, GNOME, Debian. Oliver, can you help me out here? We actually
there
have
are
a page.
actually multiple open services that one can reach. We have our OpenQA development wiki page, and from there we linked it. There's the Debian OpenQA.net instance. That's the third link from top. Oh, that's just the install document. So debian.openqa.net, which you can open. There's CubesOS and some more. There are also multiple internal instances which some peoples and some companies use, which we hear from like sometimes, I mean, not that many, but a handful of people reach out to us and say they use OpenK and then they have a certain question or some feature wish or something. I assume that the biggest OpenK instance is actually the one within SUSE. So similar as for the build service, of course, SUSE uses the build service and also SUSE uses the OpenK instance, which are both internal. And I just checked the numbers. On the SUSE internal OpenK instance, we have 20 million test jobs conducted so far in its lifetime since that OpenK instance exists, since 10 to 15 years. And the OpenQA, OpenSUSE.org, which answering the same questions in before, yes, that is a hosted service provided by the OpenSUSE project, sponsored by SUSE. That one is free of charge. You are welcome to use that as well. There we have 5 million test jobs, and that's actually, considering that every job actually spawns either a virtual machine or is connected to real hardware conducting a test, from booting the system, doing all those tests, clicking buttons, opening Firefox, installing Apache web server, communicating among multiple machines with different server client systems. That's worth of something like 10 years of accumulated testing time. So that that would be corresponding to, like, if you hire 100 engineers and let them do the manual testing, then this is what OpenQA can do. Of course, you would never ask humans to do that job because it can become quite dull to reinstall the system over and over again, but OpenQA is happy to do so.
Maybe we can also show the dependencies step.
There's one other question. Yeah, does SUSE make money off this project regarding the build service? And very much the same applies also to OpenQA. So OpenQA is sponsored by SUSE, is developed mostly by SUSE, but there are also other contributors. And we do that at SUSE because we want to guarantee a high quality of our products. And I think it is also just the same as the build service, a very nice showcase, good marketing, if that works out. And that's why, you know, we can also give it out and we market it for everybody else. And if other people use it and actually add tests like for OpenSUSE, then by that they also indirectly increase the quality of the SUSE products.
Yeah, I'm actually showing our dependencies. So we went for our own dependencies YAML file because we not only have Perl dependencies, but other packages. And so from that, we generate our cpan file and our spec file for RPM. And yeah, I mentioned before, we are using Modulicious. We also make heavy use of DBIX class. That saves us a lot of typing. There are some cases where we have to use literal SQL, but they are rare. So, and we try to really use a modern Perl stack and try to update any new dependencies in OpenSUSE Leap. I just heard that we will get a hard stop in 11 minutes from now when the meeting will automatically end.
Yep. That's
so
good.
Are there any other questions?
So I have a question. First, for the sake of completeness, I want to say so I want to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Oliver Kurz. I work with Tina in a team at SUSE, and I'm the product owner for the team. One of the main products that we develop is OpenQA, but we also maintain a SUSE internal QA infrastructure. That means that unfortunately, while we have a super awesome amount of cool ideas for OpenQA, unfortunately, much time we need to invest to keep the growing infrastructure just running and do, you know, special kind of adaptations, scaling of the system. But sometimes we even come to the opportunity to introduce cool stuff to OpenQA. So, Tina, let me ask you, why should I use OpenQA?
Why should you use OpenQA?
Well, not me. Why should people use OpenQA? What should they use it for?
It really
I know
depends
what
on
I want to use.
right. It really depends on who you are and what you actually want. For example, there can actually be many users, and I, like 2 years ago or so, I tried to use it as a demo software. So you can even write a demo for your software, and at the same time let it be a test. So if you change your software, you can run the same test suite with clicking around, and at the same time publish that as a demo for users. Because, you know, if you make videos for your software, it gets outdated pretty fast. But OpenQA can create videos for your new version every time.
Yep. I think a good example is OpenQA itself, because you showed we actually do have proper Perl tests, and those are, you know, this is really the groundwork for maintaining OpenQA itself as a software. We have tests in the projects, and they don't have any graphical output or something. We do have those OpenQA and OpenQA tests like really as the cherry on the top, which are the system level tests. And they are also a really nice visualizing showcase of how it works. They are tests, but you know, you can also showcase the video every time. Good.
There is a question in the chat from Gabor. Can you say a few words on how one could get started contributing to either of these projects, OBS and OpenQA?
Yeah, I can quickly show for OpenQA. So there's this documentation. And if you search for quick container development setup, that would give you a local instance where you could modify the OpenQA code and test it. So this is all running in a container. And we have open issues. Yeah. But
I think
issues
for both OBS and OpenQA, using the system can be a good start to find out how it works, how it's expected to work. Maybe you find something where you say like this could be improved, or you have a good idea just from using the system, and then from then on help to contribute in both ways. And for OpenQA in particular, you could help us to fill up the coverage from 99% to 100. I'd like to see that number.
Yeah, but the last percent is always the most annoying, right?
No, I think it's actually some parts missing that we don't change that often, which doesn't make them less important. So maybe that's why I want to be motivating and encouraging here. I think this is actually something where people could contribute without needing too much specific domain knowledge. So you guys, you're Perl experts, so you could help us there even if you don't know in nitty-gritty details what OpenQA is supposed to do. Yeah, there's a good example. There's something which I think is coverable.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to help and contribute, then reach out to us. Go to open.qa, and from there on the context page, there, we have a matrix chat channel, and issue tracker is mentioned there. And then or just open a pull request on GitHub. And even if it's not completely ready, if you just, draft something with an idea, we are very happy to, provide feedback and juggle around ideas just based on drafts in Perl code rather than in English.
And we have bi-weekly workshops, open workshops, so open source every Friday morning. We have some topic about OpenQA or something related where you can join.
Mm-hmm.
What time zone is that in?
What kind?
Time zone.
That's
Germany.
0800 UTC.
Thanks.
That's every even week, I think. Every even week. Yeah. 0800 UTC.
Yeah, I cannot find it here. I'm in the wrong wiki, I think.
Yep, I will link it here in the chat. progressopensource.org/projects/QA wiki tools #workshop. And you can also find there YouTube recordings. So if you want to take a look into some of the existing sessions to get an idea.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you for listening.
Yes. If there's no more questions, I want to thank all of our speakers. This was fascinating.